Hello, we're with Lynn today, and we're filming another episode of My Awakening Story. Hello, Lynn. How are you?
Hello, Sylvia. I'm good. How are you?
Great. I'm so excited to hear
Good.
your story and to share your
Thank
awakening
you.
story with everyone. And I know that the more we share, the more we can help others, and they don't feel like weirdos, because I know that's how we felt. Like you're alone.
Yeah,
And
still do.
you're the only alien going through it, but no, it's
Yeah,
all of us.
it is
So I would like
at
for
different
you
times.
to introduce yourself. I know you're a mom.
I'm a mom of two kids. I worked as a forensic DNA scientist for 16 years until the universe decided I guess I'm not supposed to do that anymore.
You're rejected.
um, I was kicked out of the nest, and just I don't know. I still feel like I'm going through my awakening. I don't feel like I've
Yeah, I don't
gone
think we're ever
through it.
done.
I don't think I've gone through it and, reached that happy place, which is why I've been kind of hesitant to do this. Because I see on the internet when most people's stories end with this great happy ending, and then they're from this happy
Where's
place.
mine?
And
I'm waiting on it.
yeah, they're coming to us from this happy place and, explaining it. But when you're in the midst of
When you're in the
turmoil,
pit.
you still feel like everything's up in the air. A lot of times, I mean, they're very well meaning, but I look at them and I'm like, well, of course you're happy now because everything's great. But,
Yeah.
so that's kind of why I decided to do this, because I'm still in the midst. I'm still feel like everything's up in the air. So I thought that maybe this could give some comfort to some people out there who are maybe still in the trenches. So
Yeah, we're in the trenches, boots on the ground. Yeah. And honestly, I don't think it ever ends. Kind of like being a mom. Like you're like, oh, I just want you to sleep through the night. Oh, I just want you to be potty trained. It's always something. Then it's a teenage, right? So essentially
yeah,
being a mom is like,
it's always something else. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. But it's like the core things, like your career, your livelihood, a relationship. To me, those are like, if I had those things in order, it wouldn't really matter what else was going on.
Oh,
But those
totally.
two areas of my life are so up in the air right now. I have no clue where I'm going to be, in 6 months. No idea.
Yeah, I feel like we're all at a like a blind curve, and you can't see. So it's like that can be really scary.
It's frightening, absolutely frightening, and it brought out a lot of like latent anxiety and just fears that I didn't even really know that I had until I was faced with this situation. And so, and maybe that's why it's happening, so that I can work through all of that and get it out of my system and end up in a better place. But
Right, a lot of
yeah, so
purging. What were some events that led to your awakening? So you said that you were ejected, like I was. That's why I relate to you so much, because we're both
yeah, we
in
were.
such a 3D patriarchal career, that very masculine, very, very structured, rigid,
And yeah,
right?
very part of the system, the very system that I no longer can even stand to be around, actually.
How weird, right?
Yeah, really weird. When I first I got drawn into this career back when I was much younger. I had a family friend that was murdered. And it was very interesting because he was murdered by people that we knew, friends of ours, actually.
Whoa.
People had been to our home, sat on the edge of my bed, we had gone out with, and for them to turn on him, and they tortured him and murdered him, and they found him in the woods like weeks later. And it
Wow.
was so traumatic that it kind of just sent me off on a tangent. I could not get my mind around how somebody could do that to someone, let alone someone that they were friends with.
Right.
And he was just a young boy. I believe he was only 16 at the time.
My
He
goodness.
he was my sister's brother, not my sister's boyfriend's brother, little brother, and we were just so shocked about it. And we actually learned about it on the news.
Oh,
Yeah,
terrible.
which was horrifying
Yeah.
to find out. And that just kind of propelled me to go down this road. I'd always been interested in science. It was always my favorite subject in school. But I just started, once I graduated, I started applying to forensics jobs, and I got one. And so I relocated from the area I'm in Florida now up to Maryland, and I got extensive on-the-job training and began to work as a DNA analyst. And so I was working crime scene evidence to help put people away, and I felt good about that at the
Right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
But then, years and years went by, and I ended up in a job down here doing the same thing. But I was working in a place that wasn't a very good atmosphere.
Yeah.
My a lot of narcissism in the management and very poor management, and it was really taking a toll on me because I started to just realize I wasn't really happy.
Mm-hmm.
And also I was in a relationship that just wasn't working out very well either. I think my awakening first I started to awaken just to myself more than anything. Like, I started to realize that I was in something that I said I would never get into, but I
Mm.
ended up in it anyway. And I
Yeah.
realized I was just repeating some childhood,
Pattern.
patterns that
Mm-hmm.
I had endured as a child in my own family. And it came as a shock to me that despite telling myself all these years I was not going to end up that way, I actually ended up exactly like that without even really realizing it.
Right.
My awakening first started as just an awakening to myself, where I was like, okay, you are in the situation and it's not good for you. And I was so sick at the time. I was at the point I really started to waken up to myself was probably around 2011 or so. And I was so sick. I was really virtually bedridden a week out of every month
Wow.
with my cycle. I mean, down for the count, could hardly function. I was only working part-time from home over the internet at that time. There was no way I could have gone into work. I could
Mm-hmm.
hardly feed my cats and take care of my children because I was so sick. One time I was at the store and I thought I was going to have to call somebody to come get me. I had just felt like I couldn't, thought I was just going to drop. So I ended up going through a lot of medical testing and procedures. I had major back issues. I went through a spinal fusion surgery. I was diagnosed with endometriosis. I went through multiple surgeries for that, and none of them really worked. So I was still in agony. I was put into pain management where I was put on narcotics. I stayed in that for 5 years, and they washed their hands of me because they couldn't do anything else. So I was left to try to figure this out on my own. So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I tried was a radical diet change. And I think that really led to me awakening more. I
Wow.
did not realize how full of toxins my body was, but I was sore all over. I couldn't even let my knees touch together when I slept at night. I mean, I just hurt. My feet hurt. Everything hurt all over. I was in total agony. So I started the diet change, and slowly things started to get better. And I ended up being put on medical cannabis for pain.
What
And
was
I
your
think that,
diet change? I'm sorry to interrupt. What was your
oh,
diet
that's
change?
okay.
Like, what did you do?
Well, I didn't even eat my first salad till I was like 21 years old. I was
What?
super picky. I would just eat,
Mm.
drive through. I didn't know
Well,
we
we're
were being
programmed.
poisoned.
We don't know.
I had
Yeah.
no idea. I had so much more faith in the government than I obviously should have. I
Right.
had no clue. And it
Right.
was funny because my husband, he was really in tune to that part of what was going on in the world. He's telling me, they are not looking out for your best interests.
Mm.
You're crazy. And I thought he was crazy. I thought he was totally crazy. I'm out in my yard spraying Roundup all over the place. I'm letting it get
On
on my
yourself.
feet. It's literally falling on my feet. And he's like, you're going to kill yourself. And I'm like, oh, you're just crazy. I really thought that they tested and cared about us
FDA
humans.
approved. Right?
I was such an idiot. I really thought they tested all this stuff, and they would never do that to us because they care
Right.
about us.
It's like they're like our parents, but like really bad parents.
Yeah, exactly. They're the parents that just want to go party. They just want you to shut up and go party.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but as I started researching nutrition, I started to realize my husband was actually really right. They really
Wow.
are poisoning us. And so I started following the Gerson protocol, Dr. Max
Mm,
Gerson.
yeah.
And I felt horrible at first, like they told me I would. I broke out in rashes all over my body and had flu-like symptoms for weeks. And they were like, that is all the toxin coming out of your body.
Wow.
And I was like,
And you kept at it? You
wow.
stayed with it?
I stayed with it because
Wow.
I had no choice. Going back
Wow,
to the
and
way
the
I was
Gerson diet is super restrictive. For those that don't know, the Gerson diet is like pretty much you can cure yourself of any disease. That's what he claims, but it's very restrictive.
it's very restrictive, but it is very effective,
Mhm.
and it's not allowed to be used in this country by a facility. They have to have
Mm.
the facilities out in Mexico and other countries, but there are many all over the world. But you can go there and check yourself in, and
Wow.
they make this juice that will just clear everything out of your body. I even started doing coffee enemas. I mean, I was hardcore about getting this stuff out of
Did
my
you
body.
follow, because it's so restrictive, it's not limited to diet. They even want you to change everything in your house. Did you go that far?
I started to slowly do that. I didn't have the money to just wham bam
It's
do
very
everything.
expensive. Yeah.
It's very expensive, but I would just do one thing at a time.
Right.
One thing at a time. First thing was diet, and then I was a Glade plug-in freak, and I got rid of all that kind of stuff,
Me
and
too.
slowly started, eating, organic and trying to filter that into my kids and sharing with them the things that I
Yeah.
was learning. And Chris Wark, he is better known as Chris Beat Cancer. He just released his first book. He was really the first person I came across on the internet that really opened my eyes to what was going on in the industry. And so he was very helpful with a
What does
lot.
he
I
talk
wasn't
about? Diet?
Yeah, he was diagnosed with stage three or four colon cancer at a very in his early 20s, and totally refused conventional treatment and cured himself, and has gone
Wow.
on to create a lot of healing modules, and just released his first book. He's been on many talk shows, and I know Ricky Lake for one, and
Mm-hmm.
very, very
That's proof.
successful.
We can do it.
It's total proof. And he really validated a lot of things that my husband had been telling me all along, that it's like I
Wow.
just didn't want to believe it. It's so
It's
hard
too
for people.
horrific.
It's horrific and it's frightening. And people don't
Right.
want to go there, because
Yeah.
if that's true, that's really freaking scary. It's really, really
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
And so that really started the whole thing. And it's like the cleaner my body got, the more awake I became.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Is kind of how it went. So it was a slow awakening. First, I awoke into myself and my surroundings, and realized
Your mess.
even though my husband was right about that, we had a really dysfunctional, abusive relationship,
Mhm.
and all from his childhood. It all makes sense to me, but you can only endure so much. But it started to affect my children when my children got old enough
Yeah.
to notice what was going on. That's when I really took the initiative to get myself out of there.
Did that
So
happen before the job change, or
that happened before the job change. Yeah,
okay.
it did. I left there in 2015 and got my own place with my children,
Mm-hmm.
and I was suddenly at peace. I had all this quiet that I had never had before, because it was the situation I was in prior. It was dysfunctional in many ways, because we were dealing with custody issues from a previous relationship that he had, and it was just toxicity, one thing after another. Just our entire relationship together was just filled with turmoil of some
Mm-hmm.
sort,
Mm-hmm.
either from us or from that outside influence there. And then suddenly I'm in this house, and it's quiet, and I can think for the first time ever, and I can relax. And I
Wow.
really didn't realize how stressed out I was until I ended up there,
Right.
able to breathe. And then it slowly just kind of started from there. It was very traumatic. I had a very abusive childhood, which is how I ended up in the situation I was in. And, so I had a lot of internal fears that I was battling. I still didn't want to let go of this abusive relationship. I took the step to get myself out of the physical environment, but I was still very much in it mentally. We were still going back and forth, and, he was supposed to change, and, all this stuff. So it was almost like I was just hanging on to that for dear life, because the thought of being alone and not knowing what my future was going to be like was scarier than staying in something that was dysfunctional, which I'm sure many people can relate
me
to.
too. Yeah. And it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't,
Yeah. And it's terrible that we do that to ourselves, because that's not the reality. But that's just, it's the way we're programmed, and especially when you have an abusive environment, and you're taught, because my parents were very much like that. Also, my mom was very timid and afraid. She never worked. She was at the mercy of my dad. My dad was very domineering and
we mimic
controlling.
Their weakness, right?
Yeah, so she just tolerated and stayed because she was too afraid not to,
Yeah. Or we think also that abuse equals love, like somewhere in here, way back there.
Yeah. He's acting this way because he loves me so much over the the crazy things I was telling myself.
Yeah, me too.
So when I got into my house by myself and I could breathe, I was still just almost bedridden with anxiety. It was all I could do to work and take care of my kids and try to fake it for them. So I spent every spare moment just researching things to make myself feel better. And it first started by just listening to like healing music at night when I was asleep.
Wow.
And that slowly progressed to, I had never even heard of a chakra. I mean, nothing. I was totally clueless to all of this stuff. I had convinced myself as a child that I didn't like to read. So I had never read anything other than what I was forced to read for college, or, something that popped up on the internet. But it opened me up to a whole new world that I didn't even know existed, of holistic health and healing. Wow. And it was like magical to me to hear all of this stuff that I had never even knew existed. And so I just slowly gained knowledge in different areas, just hopped all over the place. And I started to get into meditation, and I had a couple of really interesting episodes when I was meditating where I felt like my third eye was just like vibrating and throbbing, and it would freak me out.
Like, whoa, this works.
Going on.
Like they were right.
And I'm a scientist, so, science speaks to me. So I started really researching the science in that area, and I came across the works of Robert Monroe and his out-of-body experiences, and the Monroe Institute, and then Michael Newton, who was an atheist before he started his hypnotherapy business, and through his clients totally changed and became a believer, because he was sent people that gave him no choice but to believe. Wow. And, he was a PhD, and he opened his own institute where you can still to this day, you can go to both of them still to this day, and they have consciousness weekends where you can go and explore your consciousness, and just really amazing things. And then I got really involved with Hay House and their healing summits, and researching tapping and shamanism, and just anything and everything.
Just you feel like you're just so hungry for, you're like, oh, give me more.
Yeah. And I would and it's like I'm just grabbing from all these different areas, as every waking moment was spent doing this,
learning, right?
Absolutely obsessed with it.
Yes, me too.
And I still am. Am.
Me too.
I mean, I still do not watch TV. I do not listen to the radio anymore. I hardly ever. Right. Every waking moment is spent still just researching ancient knowledge in ancient Egypt, and all of that stuff. But that was really just opening me up to, I was really first opening up to the healing of the physical body, most
because you had to,
because I had to function. And then it came to the mind, the mind. And then that kind of led to the soul, and I was like,
because they're all
wow,
holding hands.
they really are. And I was just blown away by the science that is now backing all of this stuff.
You couldn't deny it.
You really can't deny it. The science that's out there, though, it's not available on mainstream. You're not really going to see it on
No, you
CNN
gotta look for it.
and you've got to search for it, but it is there, and it is by reputable people, Nobel Prize winners, PhDs, people who have left their traditional practices behind because they just know it's BS, and they completely go in the opposite direction. And the list is 10 miles long of people who have done that.
Right. Did you ever feel like a moment where you started becoming really allergic to 3D things? Like the way we're programmed to be? Like some people start getting allergic to holidays or shopping, Black Friday, like everything that they want us to do, or obsessively buying Starbucks, or you know what I mean? Things like that. Music. I remember I became super allergic to music. I could not have the radio on. I had to turn it off. Like it was just hurting me. And I could not understand why.
Yeah, the news, I stopped watching the news around 4 years ago because I was glued to the news. Every single morning I would watch the news. And then when I got home, I would watch the news. And while I was at work, I would read the news. And it's like I just wanted to know. But when I was faced with pretty much, my life falling apart, I was like, I just can't take any more negativity. So I just turned the news off. It was by far the best thing I had ever. And that was before I even knew what they were doing to us. It was just
it's like your soul was guiding you.
Absolutely. It was just out of survival at the time. But I came to realize, it was absolutely one of the best things I could do for myself. So
how funny.
And just a small talk with friends, they want to gossip. I've never really been into the gossip kind of thing. And I have a few friends that just go on and on and on. They'll tell me everything about their best friends, brothers, cousins, boyfriends, sister, and I'm like,
you're doing the same thing to me, probably.
I just stab myself in the forehead and get it over with. I just can't even listen to that stuff anymore. So it was like, and I've never been Black Friday shopping. So I've always been kind of repelled by that. I've always been kind of a loner. I've never really had a lot of friends. I'm really content alone, but I've really become a hermit since all
Me
this
too.
has gone on.
Yeah.
I live in a town that's really, it's right on the border of Alabama. It's the Bible Belt. But it's religion, not spirituality. It's hardcore religion where, my religion is better than yours. And if you don't believe my way, then there's something
you're
wrong
a demon.
with you. Exactly. You're the devil. And I've got family pets on my street that are being killed by an unknown person. I've got my next door neighbor beating his dog for barking at my dog. So it's like, it's a scary, scary place.
You withdraw more and more within yourself.
Yeah, so I have connected to a couple of like-minded people around here, so I'm not, totally alone, but it's an uncomfortable kind of existence right now. But I'm wondering if I'm here for a reason, so.
Yeah, a lot of us feel like that, because myself included, like there's no in real life friends that are like me, and everybody's online. Like we're all connecting like the way we met online. Everybody's online, and thank God for that, because I think we would have really like lost it a long time ago if that hadn't happened.
If I didn't know what was going on with me, I probably would have committed suicide.
Or found someone else that can relate, that's in the same boat, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, if we were back in, how it was when I was a kid, where you had to go to a library and research and check things out, which I never did.
Well, and they control all of that, so you're screwed. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm very thankful that we have what we have now.
Did you grow up with religious? Like, how did your family, were they religious?
I grew up with absolutely no religion whatsoever. My mom didn't claim herself to be this, but I've come to realize she was actually an atheist. She didn't believe. She didn't believe at all. I heard her tell a cousin of mine that she just thought it was a good story, a fairy tale, a
Mhm.
myth, something
Mhm.
that people made up to make people feel better or to keep people in line, which I agree
She's
with
not
that
wrong.
part as far as religion goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, she didn't believe in any of it. She thought that when you died, that was the end, and she was very afraid to die. And both of my parents actually passed away before I awakened, so it was unfortunate because I think I could have been a very much bigger comfort to them if I had
Mm.
known
Yeah.
then what I know now. According to my mom, though, my dad was a believer.
Oh.
However, he never shared his beliefs with us or anything. And other than not working on Sundays and being pretty strict about not using God's name in vain,
Mhm.
that was the extent of his
Mm.
religious views as far as I was concerned as a child.
So what were
But
your beliefs? What did you think?
I didn't really know what to think because I'm witnessing this dichotomy, these polar
Mm.
opposites in my parents, the
Right.
people who are everything to me, my world to me, and one absolutely doesn't believe and one does. But we kind of more went along with my mom's way because we
Right.
never prayed, we never said
Mm.
grace, and never stepped foot in a church. I had never went to church, nothing. Absolutely,
Mhm.
I had nothing. We had one Bible in the house and a set of Collier encyclopedias that had some, religious information in there. So I didn't really know what to believe. I ended up when, when I was living in, I moved to a house in Michigan when I was 5, and we ended up living next door to some very, very religious people,
Mhm.
really religious. They were so religious that they wouldn't allow their son and daughter to swim in the swimming pool together at the same time because they felt it was inappropriate for them to see each other dressed that way.
Oh.
So and they were so involved with the church, and I ended up becoming friends with their daughter.
Mhm.
And but it was still very confusing because I'm thinking,
Mhm.
are we bad because we don't go to
Right.
church? Are they good? They're supposed to be good, yet their
Yeah.
kids were one of the worst ones in the neighborhood.
Wow.
So once
Yeah.
again, I'm faced with this dichotomy of, well,
Right.
which is it? Is it
Yeah.
or isn't it? And
Yeah.
then I ended up babysitting for a family down the street when I was 11 who lived the same way, except it was the opposite. The mother was a total believer and a vegetarian and was raising her children to be that way and went to church. And the husband had nothing to do with it. She was still cooking meat for the husband. He did not go to church. So
Yeah.
I'm witnessing this dichotomy there too, polar
Yeah.
opposites. Which one is it? So
Right.
I pretty much grew up just not knowing. I really just
Mm.
decided I didn't know. So I guess that made me agnostic.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I really
Mhm.
had no clue. But through the friend that I made next door, I ended up going to church for the first time. And during 2 summers, I went to vacation Bible school with her.
Wow.
And I really, really loved it. I
Mhm.
loved being there, but I was very, very confused by the things that they were teaching us. I
Mm.
mean, this was probably like between the ages of 8 and 11, so, I'm still a really young child, but I was
Mhm.
still I remember being very, very confused by what I was hearing because we have this God who loves us unconditionally, a love that can't even be described, and he grants you free will. But if you exercise free will in the wrong way, he's going to
Mm.
burn you in the pit fires of hell for all eternity.
So that's not
That
unconditional.
that made, even as a 7, 8,
That's
9, 10 year
scary.
old
Yeah.
child, I was petrified of that. And I could not get my mind around it. To me, even at that age, I knew in my soul there was something wrong with that. It
Yeah.
did not,
Right.
it clashed with something inside of me. I didn't know what, it was, but I just did not see how that could be the case.
Mhm.
And I remember my mom telling me one time that, that we were considered sinners and that we were not God's chosen people because we were not born in Israel. And remember being just totally depressed
Yeah.
and sad that I would be condemned simply because of the country I was born in, something I had no control over.
Right.
So I decided I was going to try to read the Bible. And I made that decision because I wanted God to love me. I wanted
Right.
God to love me. And, I thought, well, maybe if I do that, I'll have a
Hmm.
chance.
Right.
And I was probably like maybe 10 or so. And I got about 3/4 of the way through, and I realized I had no clue what I was reading. I couldn't
Right.
understand anything. I had
Yeah.
absolutely no clue. So I kind of gave up, and I really actually kind of got depressed. I just thought, well, I have no hope.
Hmm.
I have no hope. I remember being a little girl in my room and asking if there really was a God to please turn my bedroom light off and prove it to me. And of course, that never happened.
Yeah.
So I grew up very, very confused about that. And then during that whole time that was going on, I was also being sexually and emotionally abused by a very close family member.
Hmm.
And I lived that way for 7 years. I was being abused without anybody knowing for 7 years of my childhood. And so my childhood was just confusion and
Yeah.
trauma
Yeah.
and just, it was a horrible, horrible
Yeah. I grew up like that too. And
existence.
it makes you question, well, if there is a God, why is he letting this happen to me?
Right. Why? Maybe it's because I wasn't born over in,
Yeah.
Jerusalem or whatever.
Yeah.
You're in, and so that went on for 7 years of my childhood. When the abuse came out to my family, I was pretty much just abandoned by them. I know now, at the time, I didn't really know what was going on. I know now that what they were doing was in their minds, they thought if I knew the abuser was sorry for what they did to me, that maybe everything would be okay. So that
Hmm.
was their approach to me was, well, look how sorry this person is. And I remember watching my mom say that to me and feeling a literal energetic punch to the gut. Like
Yeah,
I
because
could
it
not believe
invalidates
it.
your feelings and your experience. Plus, who the hell is gonna say they're not sorry when they're busted? Even a criminal committing a murder. Oh, sorry,
Yeah, I felt like they only cared about how that
that
person
person's
felt
experience.
and
Yeah.
nothing about me.
Yeah.
And then my dad's reaction was anger because I ended up telling a friend who convinced me to let her tell my mother. So that's how my parents were informed.
Mm.
They first didn't believe her,
Yeah.
thought that I must have been dreaming. When they realized that not only was I not dreaming, that it had been going on for 7 years,
Wow.
my mom's first reaction was, oh, I knew that he felt sorry, or this person felt sorry for what they did to you. And I was just angry. I just immediately went angry. And my dad's reaction was anger that I told my friend. And we were forbidden to tell anyone else
Mm.
because
Yeah.
only his feelings, he didn't want to be embarrassed. So
Right. Yeah.
I was forced to live in that
Yeah.
situation.
You got to carry all of that.
My feelings were totally invalidated, and I had to live that way for the rest of my days until I moved out of there.
Hmm.
And it was awful. It was awful. And my parents, I then just I went crazy. I started fighting in school. I got expelled in 10th grade for fighting. I quit school in 11th grade. I shoplifted a few times. I was drinking. I was doing drugs. It
Yeah.
was obvious I needed help, and nobody
Yeah.
did anything
Well,
to
it's
help
because
me.
I think you decide, oh, you don't love me, then I'm not gonna love me either.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I didn't care if I lived or died, and I
Yeah.
came really close to dying on
Because
several
you want the
occasions.
pain to end.
Yep, it's just numbing and running from the pain. And
Yeah.
I also grew up with a major anxiety disorder that I still battle to this day, but I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know. I just thought it was just one more thing that was wrong with me, and I never told anybody about it. I just suffered. I certainly
Hmm.
couldn't count on my parents to do anything for me because
So it
they
started
didn't do
back
anything
then?
for me. It started way back then. Yeah, I was just
And as a kid or when?
as a child. Yeah, it started early. I mean, I was very depressed as a child. I remember getting my picture taken in kindergarten, which was right around when the abuse started, at around the age of 5. And they could not get me to smile no matter what. I am
Yeah.
so sad
Hmm.
looking in my, and
Yeah.
anybody should have been able to
Right.
tell there was
Right.
something wrong, but
Yeah.
nobody did anything about it.
Yeah.
And I had social anxiety horribly as a child. Like I would not go and even up to the counter at McDonald's and ask for ketchup. I was petrified of everyone.
Mm.
I would try to
Well,
send
you
my
didn't trust.
yeah, and I would try to send my little sister to do everything for me. And my parents would remark about, how odd it was and how weird it was and, why are you like this? But they never sought help for me. And even after the abuse came out, there was just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. My grades went, I had been a straight A student up until ninth grade. And then in ninth grade, I only went to school 36 days out of the whole year.
Wow.
I was skipping, I was sneaking out, and I met some friends who were just as troubled as I was. So, and it was just crazy.
Yeah.
From then up until, my 20s is just kind of like a blur. I was literally intoxicated
Mm-hmm.
the entire time.
Yeah, you're trying to cope and manage the stress. I think the anxiety, because I get that too, is that waiting for the other shoe to drop feeling. Because when you're abused, you can't control them coming into your private space. They're bigger than you. You can't say anything. You're threatened. Or it's
Yes.
even if they don't verbally say it, it's understood. They're bigger than you.
Yeah.
They can
Mine was
outpower
verbally
you.
stated. It was verbally
So,
stated
you
to
know what
me
I'm
as
saying?
well. Yeah.
So
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
it's implied, and so you start. It's that I'm not safe. I'm not safe. I'm not safe.
Yeah, and then
Constantly.
I even developed sort of this kind of Stockholm syndrome with my abuser, where, I had this totally unrealistic and unhealthy and irrational love for this
Mm,
person.
yeah.
So that if I didn't do what this person told me to do and they rejected me, I felt horrible
Right.
inside. It's like I didn't want to do it, but I
Yeah.
still
It
wanted
messes
their.
with your mind. Yeah.
It's just and it was just awful. So that's kind of how my life went up until we moved from that area. My dad ended up retiring from his second career, and we relocated from Michigan and we moved to Alabama, and the abuser kind of went their separate ways around that same time also. So it was kind of like a fresh start, but
Oh,
I
good.
still I still hooked up with the same types of people
Mm,
that were, doing things that,
yeah.
weren't good. But I did make a decision. I made a decision when we moved to Alabama. We lived next door to, it was kind of a rough neighborhood. It was actually a trailer park. We were the only trailer on the street when we moved there, but then all these other people moved around us. And at one point, our neighbor right next to us was beating up his wife in our backyard.
Wow.
And
Wow.
she couldn't leave him because she had no education or no anything. So I viewed this at around the age of, I think it was 16 is when we moved there. And I made a decision then, because of that incident, that I was never, ever, ever going to be in a situation where I at least didn't have an education.
Mm,
So that if I was in a situation like that with a man, at least I could leave. I
right.
wouldn't be financially stuck. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of, at least, thank God for that, because that was really, now that I look back, the only area of my life that has been decent is that. I ended up starting college in my early 20s. I put myself through college. I got a degree in molecular biology and I graduated with high honors,
Wow.
and I did it all myself, and I started my master's degree. I finished all the coursework. I just didn't do the thesis. I didn't complete the thesis because I got offered this job that in Maryland that I just couldn't pass up. But
Mm-hmm.
so thank God I have that. So I
Right.
always have the ability to make money at a decent job and take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But every other aspect of my life was a mess.
Yeah. So you
you
got
know.
ejected from your job. What happened? Did you quit, or the
Well,
universe it
as,
intervened?
as as was the case in every other aspect of my life, I sold myself short in that area as well. I felt like I wasn't good enough to go to an actual reputable company and get a real job where real things were expected of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I landed in this little private company where I was employee number 2, and we've never had more than 5 employees at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was run by someone who was, I don't know if I should use the word or not, but just very narcissistic, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the bottom line was money, and there was
Yeah.
no respect. You know, deadlines would be changed without letting us know, and then if we weren't spontaneously ready for something we didn't know we were supposed to be ready for, we would get chastised and insulted, and
More abuse. Professional abuse.
We were being abused. Yeah, it was an abusive environment there, and I started to wake up to that too.
Yeah.
I was like, I am actually surrounded by people
Yeah.
that treated me the same way I was treated
Again.
as a child, and I had no idea.
Me too.
I was totally just unconscious to the whole thing.
Right.
And I realized, wow. And when things really started getting bad at work, it was at the same time I started awakening to like the spiritual aspect of awakening. And I got really drawn into wanting to do that kind of work. So I really just lost, you know, my love for my job, other than being able to close myself off in a lab and put headphones on and not ever have to deal with people. I love that part of my job. It allowed me to hide, which is something I've always wanted to do my whole life. I was able to hide and you know, do work that I felt good about and that I was really good at, but it wasn't good for my soul. It's not what I was supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be hiding away for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, being treated that way. I know that.
Yeah.
And I started just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I lost so much weight. I dropped almost 40 pounds.
While you were at that
2
job?
months. While I was right at the end of that job. I didn't know it was the end of the job yet, but I was just I could tell things were going bad with the job, because my boss was just getting more and more unreasonable and more abusive. She got to the point where she was, you know, bad talking one employee to another employee, and you know, and we're friends, like, we're not going to know this.
Yeah.
And the demands, and she clearly had her own, you know, unresolved childhood things going on. And I have the ability to see that in people. So I could see what it was. I knew what it was, but she's totally asleep to it. So there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
I actually tried to sit her down and talk to her, and it was like staring at a shark in the face.
Well, you're talking to somebody who's asleep. It's kind of like us now. It's like goes right over their head. Like, what do you mean? This is normal.
Yeah.
Everybody's like this.
Yeah.
This is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Oblivious. But I could see things were getting worse and worse at work. Like the deadlines were being met. They were living way above their means. They were sucking every ounce of money out of the business so that we didn't even have the supplies to do our job. And I could see something needed to change. She ended up putting the building up for sale and told us that we were just going to relocate to a smaller place. And then 2 weeks later, she's like, I'm selling out. You've got 2 weeks notice. So after 14 years with the company, I was out with nothing but a good recommendation. You know, I worked at this place.
Hey, at least you got that. I didn't get that.
At least I got that. You know, so I copied all my files and everything, that all the work that I've done. So I have that if I ever want to go back. But I honestly want nothing to do with that career anymore.
I honestly think the universe won't allow you to, because I kept trying to make a triangle shape fit into a circle shape by going back into that same law enforcement career. And no, the doors would be like, close, close, close. Nope, nope, nope.
Yeah, and I'm kind of stuck here because that kind of job is so specialized that there might be, you know, 3 or 4 cities in a state that even have a job where you can do that. So I would absolutely have to relocate somewhere far away from where I am now.
But wherever you did go, it would just get more 3D, more federal, more controlled. So
yes, every time I even consider, because I could make really good money doing that. I really could.
Yeah, but you would have to sell your soul to the devil. Me too.
the moment I even consider doing it, I literally get a physical reaction of a sick feeling in my stomach. It's just not resonating with me anymore.
Wow.
I think that I was just so dark back then that it was a good match.
Oh,
And
exactly.
now
Right.
I'm not dark anymore, and it's just not a good match. So
So
that's the only explanation I can come up with.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up out with no job.
And when was that?
This was in June of this year. So
wow, barely.
Really recently.
Yeah.
And I also had a second job where I managed a DNA database. I had that one for 13 years. So I had a job of 14 years that I lost. And within a month of losing that job, I was told my other job was going under as well.
Wow, if that's not a big, come on, wow.
What are the odds, you know?
Yeah.
What are the odds? A job of 13 years and one of 14 years ending within a month of each other out of the blue.
Oh, so and it feels like a sucker punch to the gut, doesn't it?
But right before I found out I was losing my main job, I really got drawn into the same thing that's how you and I connected, was Dolores Cannon's work and quantum healing hypnosis. I was just slowly led from one thing to another through this whole process of healing. Mm-hmm. And I ended up with her watching some of her videos. I had seen her pop up numerous times on my recommended, and I just, she's just this little old lady, just wanted I'm not gonna listen to her. What the hell? What did she say to me? I had never heard of her, any of her work.
Me too.
Nothing. And I think one day I just couldn't make it to my iPad in time to change the video, and she popped up and started talking, and I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. That's what I'm supposed to hear.
Wow.
And I was so drawn to it. So I ended up taking the level 1 course, and I actually finished that course before I actually lost my job.
Wow.
So I'm really interested in that, and energy medicine. The science behind energy medicine just blows me away, and epigenetics, and I have the scientific background where I could actually do that kind of stuff. So
wow,
that's what I really want to do. I'm probably going to have to get a little, 3D, not so enlightening job to, further that effort. But that's my now career goal, is to go into helping people heal. I no longer want to work to put people in jail. To me, that's just not the answer. It's not the answer in an evolved society. It's what we should be moving away from.
Right.
And, I know that to a victim, you put their perpetrator in jail, it gives them a sense of comfort and relief and that sort of thing. But I would really like to help people before they get to that point. So that's where my focus is.
And look, with this work, you can help both the perpetrator and the victim, because they're both victims, really.
They really are. I have come to realize that.
We all are. I mean,
we really are. Everyone has really done the best that they can with what they have and what they know.
Yeah.
Even my parents, they did the best they could. My dad was physically abused by his father, and barely survived. He had to literally learn to load a shotgun and go hunting at the age of 9 to eat. If he did not kill an animal, he did not eat that day. I mean, that's like an alien world to what we experience today.
Right.
And my mom was one of 11 children, and they lived in this tiny little place where they had 6 or 7 siblings in one tiny little room sleeping together. She left school early to help take care of the children, and so she was a product of her environment too. She was raised to think that she was last on the list.
Yeah.
And she was last on the list, and she gave and gave and gave and did nothing for herself, and just accepted what was, and thought she wasn't worthy or capable of anything more.
Yeah. And we're system busters. We're like, screw that.
Exactly. she started to get strong at the end. She passed away in 2007, but the last probably last 10 years of her life, she really kind of started to grow a voice and stick up for herself. And at one point, I even tried to talk her into leaving my father and coming and being my roommate, because she
How
was
did
so
that
full of,
go?
she wouldn't. She was scared. She wouldn't. She's like, "Oh, I can't do that," But
Yeah.
I mean, my dad loved my mom very, very much, but it's just he didn't know how to
Together.
show it. Had
Together
no
it's
idea
dynamite.
how to show it. No idea how to show it. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I love my dad very much. And one thing my dad and I did bond over when we were younger, or when I was younger, was just like the mystery in the world, like In Search Of. Do you remember that show hosted by Leonard Nimoy?
Right.
We were just enthralled with the mysteries of the world, so that was him and I, that was our thing together. And he took me to the movies to see the Bermuda Triangle movie when that came out. And he knew that there was something, and I did too, because that kind of stuff really, really resonated with me. And I should have followed that, because that stuff
yeah. Maybe
resonated
that
with me
was
in
your
college.
initial wake up alarm, but it wasn't loud enough. You needed the weapon.
Yeah, unfortunately, the 2x4 with nails to the head.
Yeah, me too. Did you lose any friends or relationships, family, like when you started waking up? Did you know, other than your husband, did you notice people falling away?
Well, I didn't really have a lot of people in my life to fall away anyway. The few that I did have, I just felt like I couldn't relate to them anymore. It wasn't that they left me. It was more like
you just
I left
gravitated away.
them.
Oh, okay.
I just, I've had a lot of friends who try to get me to go out, and they're like, you never do anything. And I'm like, I just don't want to, I just don't want to. I don't.
Yeah.
I did so much of that when I was younger. I partied enough for 10 people. I really don't miss that.
Well, I don't think it's just that. I think it's also, you can't have fake small talk anymore. Like, if it's not authentic, true,
this is like
real.
all I want to talk about. This is all I want to talk about, really.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. And what about purging? Are you still purging? Oh my God. That's another show by itself.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. It's so much that I don't know if I'm actually purging anything, or if I'm just reliving hell over and over and over.
Right? You're like, didn't I deal with that shit already?
I'm like, can one body really hold this much?
Yeah.
At some point, it's
well, they say we're doing lifetimes, and you're like, thanks a lot, Grandma.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. And it's pretty interesting because I found this counselor. My husband actually found a counselor who's actually awake. She can actually see energy fields, and she's totally down with the event and all of this stuff. And she's in the system, but still believes all this stuff. So she's trying to kind of combine them together, but still not cross the line and get her licenses taken away.
Yeah.
But yeah, she reconfirmed to me that I wasn't crazy, because she went through the whole same thing. She's like, because I asked her, I said, have you always been able to see energy? She's like, no, because I thought I was going crazy.
Wow.
And and she's like, when I was explaining to her this fear and this anxiety that I have, she goes, 99% of it probably isn't even yours. And I was like, wow, thank you for telling me that. From either the collective or past lives or cellular memory, which science is now proving. It can be, and how do you tell the difference, really?
Right, because it feels like your own.
It does. Well, she gave me this technique to try, and I had tried a portion of it, but she gave me more details to try, because I told her I get these, literally just this panic. It feels like somebody's poured ice cold water on my shoulders, and I have this just horrible panic. I'm literally shaking, and I'm like in the fetal position on the bed, and I just can't leave. And thank God I lost my jobs when I did, because I
Right.
was literally at that point when my jobs came to an end, and I had lost 40 pounds. I
Wow.
was going to the doctors. They were testing me for cancers and malignancy panels and autoimmune disorders, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was literally to the point where I felt like I was going to die. I fell behind on my bills for the first time ever in my life, not because I couldn't pay them, but because I literally just could not take the time to get on the computer and pay them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how debilitated I was.
Yeah. And didn't time get real weird for you? Like there's no concept of time. You're like, what day is it? What time is it? What
Yeah.
month is it?
Yeah, it's always like that for me. It's been
Well,
that way for me, for
just
sure.
being so OCD and so like organized and like scholarly and all that, so left-brained, that was the biggest like, whoa, this isn't me. I'm not like this. You
Yeah,
know, I'm always on top of
hard.
everything before it happens. And
Me
now it's
too.
like, oh, I didn't pay those bills. Oh, and it just feels very detached and weird.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wasn't paying them, but I was so sick that I didn't, I was like, I can't,
This
I
is
don't even
overwhelmed.
care. I'm about to die, you know,
Yeah.
I can't, you're just gonna have to wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really think that losing my job saved my life, because I'm almost 5'8" and I was down to 110 pounds, and I was just so sick. I was waking up in the middle of the night 7, 8 times a night, drenched in sweat. I would have to get up, dry myself off, and change my clothes. I couldn't keep anything down. I couldn't eat. You know, the 3D doctors put me on pain management, so I was on narcotics for 5 years.
Yeah.
And you know, losing my marriage and working at a place that I shouldn't have been working at, because it was such a small business. She was exempt from having to provide benefits to anybody. So I would have had no medical insurance. I can't afford pain management without medical insurance. So that too propelled me to get myself off of that stuff, because I was preparing for the end of my marriage and now I'm losing, you know, my job. I have no means to even do pain management.
Yeah.
And I've been on these drugs for 5 years, and I was having horrible issues from that. I knew that I would die if I stayed on that stuff. I mean, I just knew I would die.
So your soul was telling you.
And so I slowly started working to get myself off of that stuff. And I did. It took a good 6 months, but I'm now completely narcotics free.
Yay!
And I know, thank God. And I feel so much better. And all these foods that I thought I was allergic to, I can now eat without any problem. So it was the medication.
Wow. Yeah.
And I started to notice
what's in there.
And they know exactly what's in
Right.
there, and they want people to be
Programmed.
addicted. It's like moving cattle through, literally.
Exactly.
I've been to many of the pain management clinics here in town, and it's nothing to see 50 people in the waiting room, and there's like one bathroom for many people to share.
Right.
And I was there for 4 hours. You know, they just lead you through, they drug test you, and they make you bring your medication in, and they count it in front of you like you're in a loony bin.
Yeah.
And it's just a horrible thing. And I used the herb kratom to get myself off. I didn't even tell my doctors that I was doing it. They were trying to set me up, actually trying to pressure me into getting another epidural on my spine.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't think I want to do that.
Good for you. What's kratom? For those of us that don't know.
It's just a plant that grows over in Thailand, and they take the leaves and they dry it out and they put it in capsules, and it attaches to the same receptors that the opioids or the narcotics do. Lortab,
so people can use that to detox? To
wean. Well, I just totally replaced. I didn't even wean. It is so effective that it gave me the same pain relief as the narcotic did. I noticed no difference.
Wow.
So I just replaced, and then I slowly started to wean myself off the kratom, because the kratom, unlike the narcotics, kratom will not suppress the central nervous system. So people will not die if they take too much, and it's not nearly as addictive as the opioids are. you can still get addicted. It's not, you know, something you can just quit cold turkey, but it is much easier on the body to get yourself off of that than it is the opioids. So that's what I did. I just did a total replacement. I did that
Wow.
for several months, and I went from taking like 12 pills a day to now I'm down to taking 4. So
Wow.
I'm slowly, and then I've added there's some herbal supplements. One is called Calm Support, which is really, really helpful to alleviate withdrawal symptoms. Because as I started to improve my health, I noticed that I was having to take pain medication because of the withdrawal symptoms from the pain medication.
Wow.
So I was not able to reduce my pain medication because of the pain medication.
Right. And they
And
plan
so
it that way.
they absolutely do. And when I went to the doctor, before I had planned to take myself off, I you know, it starts to lose its benefits. That's why people start abusing it. You have to take more and more and more. So I was on the maximum dose they will give out. By law, they could not give me anymore. So what they did was they added morphine to it.
Wow.
So I was on morphine and Lortab, the
Oh my
strongest
goodness.
pills that they make.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just getting sicker and sicker and sicker.
Wow.
And you know, the withdrawal symptoms from that stuff is just horrible, absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
And I went to them and I was like, you know, I'm still feeling horrible. And so that's when they wanted to start, you know, doing more procedures on me. And I was like, there's
That was your
gotta
red
be a
flag.
better way.
Yeah.
Gotta be a better way. So I started researching it. I found people talking about Kratom. I found a company who sells a really good quality and decent prices.
If
And
you want to give a shout out to that company for if anybody's interested.
yeah, it's called Beaufort. I think it's Beufort, Kratom. And it's in Virginia, I believe. The guy he actually created a video on YouTube about getting off of opioids, and that's his mission in life, is to help people get off of opioids.
Cool.
And he's a great guy. I mean, you can call him up and talk to him personally on the phone.
Wow.
It's his life mission, and the feds are really cracking down on him. They don't want him to do it. They don't want
Well, of course not, because they don't want you to feel good or be awake or.
Yeah. They've just taken away his ability to process credit cards. So it's just like one thing after another. They've seized his shipments on many occasions. So, but right now he's still selling it, and it's excellent quality. And if you're on them and you want off, it's a really good way to do that.
Wow, thank you
very,
for
very helpful.
sharing that. That's a big problem. I know a lot of people, because even when I lost my job, they wanted to shove 5 different medications at me, and I'm like, who the hell's going to be happy? Oh, you're depressed. Oh, you have thyroid. Well, stress aggravates the thyroid, so maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just normal and not doing cartwheels and it's 11:11, by the way. You know, the numbers, they're everything.
I've been getting a lot of that lately.
Yeah. And so even having a baby, they shove meds at you. And I always thought, I mean, yeah, it hurts to have a C-section, but I always thought, how the hell am I going to be so knocked out with narcotics and care for a newborn that doesn't sleep? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, I don't have a nanny.
Yeah, and breastfeed. They expect
exactly.
You to breastfeed
drug up your kid too. Yeah.
Yep. They tried that with me too. Because my thyroid went out of whack too. At the height of my stress, my thyroid went out of whack, and they, strung me along with testing, knowing I was waking up every night drenched in sweat. You know, I would lose 4 pounds in a night of just sweat.
Yeah. What did they give you for the thyroid? What did they say?
Ended up not giving me anything, because they actually set me up for more testing. I was supposed to fast and come in and test on a Saturday. And getting to that hospital, it's a good 45-minute drive from here. It's a military hospital.
Wow. Really?
I had to get my kids up early, and I fasted.
So it's a big production.
I felt like I was dying at that time. So it was extremely, extremely difficult. I drive all the way out there, and the doctor had forgot to put the testing in the computer. So I got there. I couldn't even do the testing. I was so sick of their crap at that point that I kind
Yeah.
of did a little Facebook rant. And I have some cousins over in Australia who are really into natural health, and she told me, she said, take iodine. She goes, I don't know why your doctor didn't tell you that. She goes, supplement with iodine. And she sent me this,
Like drops or what?
she said, get it. Yeah. She said, just supplement if you can find a supplement for it
Mm-hmm.
to do that. It's a mineral supplement. And she sent me this little video, which was an excerpt from, I believe was one of the Truth About Cancer series, where they specifically talk about that that's one of the minerals that is the most efficient in our society that no
Right.
one's talking about. And I happen to have some minerals here that had iodine in them that I just hadn't taken. And so I took some, and my night sweat stopped that night.
Whoa.
That night.
Girl, I'm ordering me some iodine.
Seriously. And, and I'm like, why aren't the doctors telling us this stuff? I went back to my doctor and I told her this, and all she said was, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I feel bad for them because they think they're doing right by us, but the people who are in charge of the schools and who are in charge of training them are training them to create repeat customers.
They're zombies. They're zombies.
They are.
And that's in every facet that I've worked in. I've worked in the hotel industry, in the medical field, with doctors, surgeons, in the law enforcement field. They're just people. They have problems. They're worried about their wife cheating on them or the husband leaving them. Or, I mean,
Yeah.
they're wrapped up in their little world, and they're like, yeah, here you go. Here's your script. Go get out of my face. Now let me go fight with my spouse, or let me worry about my bills.
Yeah. And they have blind faith in the system, just like
Right.
I did. It's too, there's like so much going on in their life and in the world. It's like they don't want to go there too. That's just almost like too painful.
It's too scary. It's too much to deal with.
It is. And it's like they just have blind faith that they're getting the best, instruction. And now there are very well-meaning people in the industry. Yeah. Obviously, there really are. And we've mastered really, when it comes to the physical body, our doctors are amazing. I mean, they can piece you together. They can work miracles when it comes to the body, but they have totally ignored the spiritual and energetic aspects of our body.
Right. Yeah, we're a lot more. Yeah.
We are way more, and that's why they can't explain the things that they can't explain. Just the amino acids. Some of them love water and some of them hate water, and they still can't explain why that is. Some join together and some repel each other, and they still don't quite know why that is. And it's because there is an intelligence, there is a consciousness in there that they have totally ignored over on this side of the world.
Right.
You go over to the other side of the world and it's all incorporated.
Yeah.
I've seen I'm a huge fan of Gaia TV, as you know. But they a lot of the science that you can't see here, you can see there. And I've seen tumors disappear in real time on ultrasound from doctors. They have actual medicineless hospitals over there.
Wow.
Where they have harnessed the power of intention and energy and spirit. And people who are sent home to die or sent home with inoperable tumors, they're curing these people with just tapping into that part of our existence that has been denied to us over here.
Right. Yeah, because your body's speaking to you.
It is. It absolutely is. And mine was, because Western medicine gave up on me. They were like, there's nothing else we can do for you.
But that kind of helped you. That helped you because it guided you. It forced me.
It forced me. It forced me to have to look somewhere else. And I was literally blown away by all of the things that I found, you know, and it's like one thing led to another. And then I became awakened to the spirituality. And after I woke up to that, I started to remember some things from my childhood that made me realize I really knew it all along. Wow. It's just that life kind of just got in the way at one point.
Yeah.
One of my earliest memories was I couldn't have been more than 4. I think I was 3 at the time, but I moved from this house when I was 4. So I know I couldn't have been older than 4. My mom, even though she was an atheist, she didn't deny, the little storybooks or whatever. I remember she read a storybook of Noah's Ark to me at that age. And honestly, I don't know how anybody can think that's an appropriate story for a child. I was absolutely
the apocalypse.
I was freaking petrified and mortified and horrified, and I could not get these drowning people out of my head. And I remember lying on my living room floor, looking up at the ceiling, just, this tiny little child, 3 or 4 years old. And I was holding my breath, trying to imagine what it would be like for all of these poor people who died because God, who loves us so, sent this flood to clear everybody out.
Yeah, rain is evil.
And I remember having this thought then that I knew that the life force inside of me could never be extinguished. I knew that I would never die.
Whoa.
I knew it.
Wow.
But then life took over after that, and the abuse started, and so I really lost touch with that. But then again, when I was about 7, I remember waking up. It was about dusk. I could just barely see, and I was levitating above my body, just slightly out of it, not all the way out, but out enough. And I woke up, and it like kind of shocked me, and I went back in.
Wow.
I was able to sink back into that feeling and experience it again.
Wow.
And then at the age of 11, I saw a UFO out of
I was going to ask you about that.
My basement. We had in our house in Michigan, we had we called it a family room, but it was like a partially sunken basement. The windows were up at the very top of the wall, and they were ground level, so I could sit down in my big beanbag and look out and see the sky. And it was a 3-level house, so all my other family was up in the other levels. I was the only one downstairs, and I was sitting there in my little favorite beanbag looking out, and I saw this green, it looked like a hockey puck shape almost. It was a round green disc, and it would just slowly went across, and it was slowly blinking. It was a round solid green light, and I was absolutely mesmerized by it. And I knew I didn't have time to run up and get somebody and come back, because it would have disappeared over the houses across the street. So I just decided to sit there and watch it.
Wow.
But I never told anybody about any of these things, and I kind of just really dismissed them and didn't even really think about it. But after I started to awaken, I was watching an episode of Ancient Aliens one day, and they did a huge segment on the green discs that go into Lake Michigan that have been reported for hundreds of years.
What?
And I got goosebumps all over, because I was.
I bet you started jumping up and down. Validation.
Oh my God, that's what I saw. And it just like brought it.
And what did they say about those discs going into Lake Michigan? Because I grew up in Chicago.
Just that they've been reported for, I can't remember the number of years. I think they've said hundreds of years that there have been reports of green discs flying into the water.
Wow. And I believe that the water is portals. The ocean, right? Lakes, any body of water. I think it's a portal.
Our oceans are so unexplored. Anything
exactly.
Could be down there.
And they want you to look up, not down, right?
Yeah, I mean,
do the opposite of what they say.
There have been some pretty interesting reports from things in the water. So
wow,
who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
So
well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Do you have any advice on anybody starting to wake up right now? Something that you wish you would have known back then? Some pep talking.
When you're in the midst of hell, it's really hard to take on anybody's pep talk,
Yeah.
Because I lost my marriage and both of my jobs and my health all at the same time, like wham, bam, bam, bam. And there were times where I came really close to just checking out, and if it wasn't for my kids, I probably would have.
Absolutely.
And there were even a couple of times where I didn't quite know if even they would be enough to keep me here.
Yeah.
I would say just, don't do it alone. don't just sit in your room and suffer and think that you're alone, because you're really not. Reach out. There are a lot of people online that you can connect with. There are a lot of great
Yeah.
communities out there, people who are going through the same thing. That's how you and I met. We're like twinning at the
Oh my
same
God,
time.
totally. Yeah.
Going through the same thing at the same time. And it really helps to share.
And
with
we're
somebody
still in
else.
it, but it does get better.
It does. And like they say, if you were to watch a seed break open, you would
Wow.
think it's being destroyed, but then what comes out of it, is a beautiful flower.
Oh, I love it.
Every beginning, has to start with an ending.
Wow.
The ending
Yeah.
is actually just the beginning. It's you being guided to something that
You're evolving.
you're evolving, and it's you being guided to something that you deserve. Because usually when people go through this kind of stuff, they've been selling themselves short. They've been selling themselves short. They've been settling. They've been putting themselves last and dealing with things that they should not have to deal with. And if we had the self-love that we should be raised with, we wouldn't tolerate the things that we tolerated. I know that I ignored an elephant in the room.
Oh, me too.
When I got into the relationship that I got into, and I could see it, but I could also see what it was, because I'm very intuitive. I'm very empathic and very compassionate. And I had been working on healing myself since my early 20s.
Yeah.
In some regards, it was just a very narrow focus, I realize now, instead of a full scale focus like it is now. But I knew what it was, but just trust your gut. Don't allow your body and your emotions to override that inner voice. Don't allow it. That's what happened to me. My fear of being alone and thinking that I couldn't do it on my own is what caused me to settle for something that I shouldn't have settled for, and to put myself in a situation that I shouldn't have put myself into. So, you're worth it. You're loved. Just because the people around you might not reflect that to you, that's them and their issues. It has nothing to do with you and your self-worth. Find the people who will lift you up and drop the ones who don't.
Right. And
so
you can't save anybody, because I wasted so much energy trying to save him.
Yeah.
You can't force feed anybody light.
You can't. And that's what I did too. I did too. And for the kids and this fairy tale dream, but I realized it really isn't about him.
No, honestly,
it's the fantasy. It's just the fantasy
the
of what I
story.
wanted. But
That's
you can
Cinderella.
have it with someone else. You can have it with somebody else. If it's not meant to be with this person, then it's meant to be with somebody else. But we're not meant to live miserably and be treated horribly and and do things that we don't want to do. So I say follow your heart. Find something that you love and that doesn't feel like work, and try to excel at it, and just surround yourself with happiness.
Enjoy life. Enjoy it.
I had a horrible negative voice in my head. I didn't realize how horrible it was until I got here in the silence, and I would hear myself speaking to myself, and it was just awful.
I don't think it's even our voice. I think it's entities outside of us that whisper crap so they can feed off of us.
I believe that that's definitely part of it, but I also think that it's also partial to subconscious programming. If you're made to believe that you're stupid and not good enough and you can't do it yourself and you're not worth it, you're going to start saying those things to yourself.
That's the program that's running.
Just immerse yourself in positivity, garden, anything. Flowers really helped me through some of my darkest times. I started to notice that, I would have literally full body panic and agony and pain. And I had some flowers pop up in my yard that I didn't even know were there. And I was like, wow. And it just kind of sucked me into those. And, they just surround yourself with things that are beautiful and that make you happy and
Yeah.
And just slowly just work on every little aspect of your life. You know, we're taught that if you go to college and you end up with a degree and a decent job, you're successful.
Right.
And you're good. But that's such
but we were miserable in those situations.
That is such a narrow aspect of what,
there's more.
There's so much. I mean, that doesn't even define who a person is, you know. You know, you can have a good job and make a lot of money and still be a total jerk.
Right.
Still be a horrible person, you know. So, you know, you've got to look at all aspects. Your financial life, your spiritual life, your career, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your significant other,
yourself,
and your relationship with yourself, absolutely, and your fitness, you know, all your mental health, all of those aspects are important. So just take one thing at a time. You know, there are a lot of tools out there, self-hypnosis and subliminal messages, you know, subliminal sleep programs, and it's all free, you know, it's all on YouTube. Just do the research, and the more you do, the more results you'll see. I had Post-it notes all over my house at one point.
Me too.
All in my refrigerator. Everywhere, trying to change that inner voice. And it does work. It takes time, but it does work.
Right. We just have to keep at it.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Lynn.
Well,
I appreciate your time. Thank you.